I do have very good memories of 90s in Poland. That
Yeah.
was very wild, you know. You could call it wild east. And this wildness is mostly about there are many things that they were wild. They were positive and negative. The positive were this eruption of entrepreneurship, and so many people started their small companies and they were trading everything. They were even trading plastic bags from German supermarkets on the street of
Yeah.
Katowice, where I grew up when I lived 29 years of my life. So everything, they were selling butter from the folded beds on the streets.
Yes.
They were starting all bunch of businesses.
Buy my novel, Escape from the Village, from major booksellers online. Go to escapevillage.com. Subscribe to the Substack. Go to fountainheadforum.substack.com. Support the forum. Go to buymeacoffee.com/fountainheadforum. Thank you. Welcome to the Party Pal. This is Fountainhead Forum 256. I'm talking to Jacek Spendel. He's currently president of an organization called Liberty International, which is an educational organization which has some projects which educate liberty activists all over the world. They've been having a conference for since the around 1980, which is a worldwide conference.
1982.
1982, yes, I've been to it several times, and they go all over the world. It moves around all over the world every year. It's a very interesting and fun conference. Definitely worth going to if it's in your area or if it's not in your area. They just had the one in Dallas, Texas earlier this week, which was the closest it's ever been from me. But next year it's in Buenos Aires. So yes,
Yes.
how are you, Jacek?
Hi, hello, Chris. It's a pleasure to be your guest, and I want to say hello to the audience, to everybody who is watching us. I'm really impressed. 256. These are many episodes, and I watched number of them, and they're always high quality. So good job, wonderful to be your guest.
Thank you. Yes, I certainly do my best. I always start off with, or I usually start off with this question: how did you become a libertarian, Jacek? You're over there in Poland.
Oh, I became a libertarian. So first of all, in my household, my parents maybe were not libertarians per se, or they have not named it these ideas. They believe in libertarian, but they were always, and they are very entrepreneurial, very much in favor of individuals being able to make choices for their lives, and skeptical about government. So this kind of climate was felt in my house. However, this is not about books. This is not about ideologies. This is about general climate, right? And then as a 15-year-old boy, I started following news, and that includes Polish politics. And I found this guy who was running for president of Poland, Mr. Janusz Korwin-Mikke. And today, I am a little bit distant from him, but it doesn't matter. It was the year of 2000. I was 15 years old, and I heard this number of very libertarian messages. He was also much more libertarian back then than today. And I was like, wow, that sounds very interesting. It's simple, but I like it simple. And it just didn't sound like a bullshit that I hear from
Yeah.
other politicians. So I started reading his newspaper. Was a weekly magazine, and it was like a fascination, And I got more and more involved. And at some point, I felt that I want to do more. I want to get involved. I was about 16 or 17 years old, and I couldn't find any group to be part of. And I needed to wait until I was 18 when I discovered this organization, Coliber, which is hummingbird in English, and Coliber stands for Conservative Libertarian, or Conservative Liberal if you take liberal in
Yes.
classical context.
Yeah.
So I joined, and only being in Coliber, I started discovering authors like Murray Rothbard and and many others. But Murray Rothbard's the Libertarian Manifesto that I read in 2004, being 19 years old, was very transformative. It made me more radical. It made me a libertarian, basically. So my journey with ideas of freedom started at the age of 15, 16, but on the very shallow level, and I jumped to this wagon named libertarianism at the age of 19, and I'm still here, being what 39. It's 20
Yeah.
years of libertarianism. You know,
Mhm.
it's quite it's a lot of fun.
So you were born when there was still a Warsaw Pact, and you would have been 4 years old when all of this started to crash and burn. Do you have any memories of the old way, or not?
Not really. I don't want to lie. I don't
Yeah.
have memories of communism. I do have very good memories of 90s in Poland. That
Yeah.
was very wild, you know. You could call it wild east. And this wildness is mostly about there are many things that they were wild. They were positive and negative. The positive were this eruption of entrepreneurship, and so many people started their small companies and they were trading everything. They were even trading plastic bags from German supermarkets on the street of
Yeah.
Katowice, where I grew up when I lived 29 years of my life. So everything, they were selling butter from the folded beds on the streets.
Yes.
They were starting all bunch of businesses, and for example, my uncle, he was a very entrepreneurial from the very beginning, and he found these contacts in Middle East. And at the beginning, he was traveling there with small amount of money, buying and different stuff, and then trying what will sell better in Poland. He was able to sell with huge profit, but he was figuring it out what gives the best profit. So at some point, he was able to engage into car business, and he had this opportunity to buy number, I don't know what number it was, but number of Mazdas from Kuwait just
Yeah.
before the war started. But everybody knew that the war is going to happen, and he got this Mazdas on a very good sale. They rather sell them and ship to Poland than get them destroyed by armies. So he would start a Mazda salon in Poland, official Mazda salon, and he would sell Asian models of Mazda. Today is unthinkable. It's not just the
Yes.
state regulations; there are also private regulations of these big corporations. He had this Mazda car salon, car dealership, you should say in English, a car dealership with Middle Eastern versions of Mazdas. So a
Yes.
lot of stuff like this in 90s, and a negative would be unfortunately lots of burglaries, lots of criminal activities, and corruption as well. So for example, in my house, which is kind of middle class house, maybe back then middle upper class, single house in Katowice,
Mhm.
southern Poland, we had four burglaries in the decade of 90s.
Yeah.
That's crazy. Right now, Poland is a very safe country, and very little corruption, very safe. So, but maybe less entrepreneurship. So a lot of stuff changed since 90s. And 90s were very interesting. But I don't remember communism. I know communism from stories. I know communism very well from both stories, family stories, and history, because I like history. But I don't have this personal, memories from that dark uh, period of Poland's history.
Poland unfortunately has a lot of dark periods in history, but it's a yeah. So how'd you? So now you're the president of Liberty International now. So what all has Liberty International been doing over the years? What's your proudest accomplishments there?
Oh, Liberty International is quite old
Yeah.
organization. If we look to the very roots, we should say that the beginnings were in late 90s, late 60s. Sorry, 1969 is
Yes.
when SIL, Society for Individual Liberty, was
Yeah.
founded. I think it was connected with this Barry Goldwater revolution, that more and more young people thought that we are not like the other conservatives. Maybe we are not conservatives at all. Maybe we need a new word. Maybe we need a new movement. So there was this split in Young Americans for Freedom, and
Yes.
those folks who left their conservative friends. Many of them started SIL,
Yeah.
and they did a lot of good theoretical work. And in 80s, another organization was started named Libertarian International, and this was more activist organization that big aim was to create a network for libertarians outside of the US. And in 1989, Libertarian International merged with SIL, and they created ISIL, which is International Society for Individual Liberty, which is our still legal name, but we are doing business as Liberty International. That rebranding happened about 15 years ago. It was connected with the fact that this acronym ISIL was used by some terrorist groups in Middle East. We didn't want to be mixed with
Yes.
them. But yeah, we are born out of these two organizations as a blend. For many years, the main purpose was creating a network and bringing the light of liberty to places that were much darker, like Poland and other countries on the other side of the Iron Curtain, right? And that was done. A lot of literature was smuggled by ISIL and its peers and its friends and activists to the communist part of Europe. Also, we had, already in 80s networks in faraway places like South Africa or Swaziland. That's where we had our World Conference in 1988. Um,
Yeah. Swaziland too.
yes, South America. So building a network and creating opportunities for people to meet, and also using this network to smuggle liberty agenda, liberty literature, and so on and so forth. That was big. That was the main stuff. And then in the 90s and early 2000s, we had another project added to this. It was the Liberty Camps. Language of Liberty Institute was formed in 2005 as a kind of like a sister organization. We still do a lot of things very closely together, and until now. So for many years, it was mostly education and networking, and we are doing these things also now, but we do much more. Now we a few years ago, after I took this position of president, we changed the mission a little bit. Now it's finding and expanding freedom in an unfree world. So basically, what we do, and these are several different projects that all aim to empower an individual, and it doesn't matter where the individual lives. Especially, our focus is on the less fortunate countries where freedom had less chances to be implemented in the past. But empowering individual, meaning that we very much agree that there is freedom in this world, even this unfree world. Despite the regulations and taxes, there are many positive forces for freedom. We just need to grasp them. And we as individuals, because we in Liberty International, we don't have too much belief in governments, or many of us have no belief in governments. So while we always applaud that there are some positive changes in some countries, like right now, great stuff happens in Argentina. Still, most countries in the world are run by some bad people, and these individuals who live in all of these countries, they also need more freedom. So we do several different projects, from educational and leadership projects like Project Arizona, where we empower and train leaders from all over the world who are already freedom advocates, through liberty camps that I mentioned, up to this new project we want to start this coming year in Nepal, sending American students to a socialist country, so they understand the ideas of socialism better, and why it's a poison, and perhaps they help in reforming the country. through inspirational project, because to ignite this change in individuals is also important. We inspired through, for example, something we started 2 years ago, storytelling department. We have a team of people, mostly in Argentina, who are working on animations that mission of these animations to ignite this flame of liberty within individuals. While after the flame happens, and the freedom change is ignited, an individual already knows what to do. He or she starts to think like, what can I do to live freer and thus happier life, because freedom leads to happiness. And last thing, we empower through projects that are very tangible on how they can serve individuals all over the world, so they can live freer lives. I have in mind, for example, our research department and its newest index called Digital Nomad Tax Freedom Index. So I find it very practical. People who think like, maybe for a few years I will leave my country and search for more adventure and more liberty together, because these two go together very often. And that kind of index helps a lot, because these decisions are not just based on weather and food. These are important, but they're also based, especially for libertarian minded people, on how about how about the money I will need to pay the government, taxation, and of course the countries that are taxing less are on the top of the index, because taxation is theft, and the ones who rob the people less are the winners from that perspective. Through projects, online courses like financial freedom, where we basically talk about very concrete tools people can use, and also a mindset that supports a change, individual change towards smarter finance, being, financially free person. You don't need to inherit a fortune in today's world to be financially more free, more independent. And we teach these things. We give these tools. Or emotional freedom, because the state of your mind matters probably more than anything else. And I agree with many people saying that start the revolution with yourself, and that also includes libertarian revolution. I mean, we as a freedom advocates, we should be people who have organized things in our own lives. So emotional freedom course is another one. But I can talk long. It's already quite long. I don't want to make it boring. I just wanted to give
Yeah.
you an overview of what we are doing and why we are doing it.
Yeah, that was certainly, yeah. You know, yeah, since with the conference happening in Buenos Aires next year, I got to ask, could you have predicted 10 years ago that something like Melee would have happened, or even 5 years ago
No,
that this would have happened? And if
no.
and would you have predicted, and where might you have predicted it? I mean, was Argentina surprised or not? I mean, Doug Casey, for example, has said he wasn't that certain. It seemed to have said there were certainly the pieces in place, but I think it probably shocked some people, except for maybe people who were following Argentina closely.
Well, I expected that Javier Milei might get a decent result, especially
Yeah,
that he was already quite recognizable persona. He was in media. I heard about him. I maybe didn't watch these particular videos, but I knew that someone like this exists. And then I was quite happy to hear that he wants to run in politics, because I knew from, especially from my friends, that this is a tough guy, right? So he will not just change because of the wind
yeah,
of ideas. But I definitely did not expect him to win, especially after the first round. He got a good result, but he was still second, and he still needed quite a lot of votes. So my thinking was, no, it will not happen. The center right people will get scared about how radical it is. I was thinking that he will lose, and I was afraid that he will lose badly, maybe 60 to
Yeah.
40. And then when I saw these results, I was very happy and somehow excited, but also full of also, I don't want to hear negative, but some kind of reservation that it will be tough, because he doesn't have the parliament majority and so on and so forth. And politics is very tough because you need to deal with forces of state, forces
Yeah.
of big government, special interest groups, basically in every single level, and it's very hard. Even good people often lost these battles with special interest groups. So I was like, this guy is good, but I'm not sure how much he can do. Maybe he can do 10%. Oh, that would be great already. But now we see that he's doing much more than 10%. It's still not 90%. Maybe it's about 40 or 50. Hard to measure, but taking the situation in the parliament and other factors, uh, I see many positive news, many positive news. So this is crucial because, okay, from one hand, I'm still a guy who doesn't believe in politics per se, right? Because first of all, we should not focus too much on politics. I think we should have our own lives, and that should matter. Politics should be very limited subject, but and also in political reality, most countries have democracy. And I don't say it to be super negative about democracy. Democracy has pros and a lot of cons. Monarchy as well. Monarchy is not great. But the cons, the negative sides of democracy is that people very often vote for this, quick gains out of other people's pocket. So I don't have too much expectations from politics. But if something like this happens, then I'm obviously happy and supportive. So very excited for Buenos Aires conference, because the theme of the conference will be fighting the state from within. So it's
Yes.
both
Mhm.
about reforming, but it's also very libertarian, that we
Mhm.
still don't trust government. If it's Milei's government, right? But this guy, as long as he himself and his closest people also believe that state is dangerous, then we are at home, right? And we'll be
Yes.
discussing this big change that happened in Argentina. That'll be the main topic. We will from time to time uh, segue to other topics connected to Latin America and Americas in
Yeah.
general, but that will be our core topic. So everybody who watch this podcast and you
Yeah.
are interested in what's going on in Buenos Aires, in Argentina, in Latin America, make sure to come. We still run promotion until the end of the
Yeah.
year,
Mhm.
and yeah, enough of marketing
Yeah,
for a
enough of
minute.
marketing. Well, of course, the other reason too is, if you're having the conference in Buenos Aires, it's going to be a lot easier to get him to speak there. So, because
Yes, we are very hardly working on this.
Mhm.
I am positive, I am optimist that
Yeah.
we'll have Mr.
Well,
President speaking at our conference, but I cannot announce it officially
yeah,
yet
yeah,
because we need to
yeah,
be professional. We need to
yeah,
have this in writing.
yeah, yeah. You have to have it in writing. Yeah, I don't want to. I don't want to. Yeah, but that's closer than a 10-hour plane ride from Buenos Aires to DFW. Yeah,
Yes, you have a direct connection. I envy you.
yeah. Well, yeah. I've traveled too. I've traveled. I mean, I've been to Ulaanbaatar and I've been to Tbilisi, which are not easy places to get to, but they were certainly very interesting places to go to. I mean, yeah. So
Yes,
it's
so Chris just mentioned some cities where we organized
yeah,
LIWC, Liberty International World Conference. And
yeah.
I think we met either
Ulaanbaatar,
in Krakow or in Ulaanbaatar.
Ulaanbaatar. Yeah,
Ulaanbaatar 2019, yes.
yeah. Krakow. Yeah, yeah. Because I've noticed sometimes you don't have the conference in the sort of what I'd call the smaller cities. More like you had it in Krakow instead of Warsaw, or or as you call it, Warsaw. But it's
Of course. I mean,
and of course a lot of Americans still call it Krakow. But yeah, the cities that aren't quite not necessarily the capital, but maybe a city that's not as well known. Buenos Aires is an amazing city. It's certainly,
We usually have it in either capital or largest city or
yeah.
city number two, maybe.
But sometimes those cities can be a little cheaper because of course we were in Madrid when the first round of voting for Milei got in, so that was what we were all talking about at the conference. Because yeah,
Yes.
yeah, that was an interesting venue. Yeah, there's a lot of lovely venues in Buenos Aires, and of course it's still fairly cheap to go there. Although I suppose it's going to get more expensive. I've had some nice Airbnbs down there.
It's actually getting more expensive,
Yeah,
but it's not the inflation that
yeah,
the government has to do with
hmm,
the inflation is actually going down, but some products are more expensive because they are now market-based prices for many things, and they were basically taken away from free markets. They were regulated,
yeah,
maybe not accessible. Now they are on the market base. And second thing, which I don't know if this is already happening, but this will happen in my opinion, there will be a growth of prices connected with demand.
yeah,
So more and more people will want to go there, and
hmm,
more people would like to invest there, and then the prices grow because the supply is limited. So I spend some time every year in Arizona because I'm still a director of Project Arizona, the leadership program for young pro freedom leaders. And
yeah,
I noticed that Argentina has faster prices growth than other parts of the US. And I don't think it has to do only with politics. It has also to do with, I call it price of success. I think more and more people recognize that Phoenix is a very attractive destination, especially in winter. So they want to
yes.
come, and then businesses notice this and they grow. They set the prices a bit higher. So that's also a phenomenon that happens together with success.
Yes, it does. Not to mention, you attract more people. I mean, I mean, they've already got lots of Venezuelans, and the Venezuelans love Milei, and he loves them. I've seen pictures of him holding up their flag. You don't see a president of any country holding up a foreign flag very often, but he just because he knows how they've supported them. And yeah,
Oh
so
yeah, oh yeah. He's very clear about
yeah,
communism, and
yeah,
totalitarianism. He says, okay, I'm the freedom person. I want to fight for freedom in my country, but I'm not blind for other countries as well. And I
yeah,
recognize that people suffer in places like Nicaragua, Venezuela, Cuba, and in the other continents. They suffer in places like Russia. They suffer in places like North Korea, China to some degree. He had guts to say, like, China is a communist country. Many politicians have no guts, right?
yeah.
It takes a guts to say things like this.
I know one thing that seems to be a big concern for a lot of people is this. There seems to be now you go back 100 years ago, the world was a little more divided, but it seems now that we have a lot of anti-freedom forces that are literally coming at us more at an international level, wanting to regulate our lives. And it seems like there's a lot of more collaboration, especially, now that it's so easy to travel, it's so easy to communicate. I mean, we're doing this show. We couldn't have done this show 50 years ago. It's but now it's almost like we're getting closer to you know a bigger world government. It's going to get harder to escape. What do you think are some of the most
It goes,
dangerous threats out there right now?
I think it goes both directions. From one hand,
Yeah,
the forces of big government or forces of global government,
yeah,
or governments, they are stronger and stronger.
yeah,
I can see that. Generally, we see that the percentage of GDP consumed by governments is growing in most countries. The spending is growing. Taxes generally, yes, maybe except income tax. That one was maybe higher before, but other taxes didn't exist. Now they exist. So it's just a game. What is important is how much of the GDP, how much of the value produced by private actors are wasted by governments, and it's more. than ever. And regulation, that's another big thing that maybe we don't talk enough in our libertarian circles. We mostly focus on taxes, but regulations are sometimes even worse. It's basically it's a message to creative people that it will be either
Yeah.
impossible or much harder to produce goods or services, and there's always this safety excuse, which is mostly bullshit. Just delivered to us to explain, and people love safety.
Hmm.
Big amounts of people love safety. This is all happening. This is true. From the other hand, there are forces of private enterprise, and forces of innovation, and forces of liberty same time, that are also not sleeping. Like you said, Chris, we can have this interviews online, and no, it's not censored, at least so far, and it's super cheap, right? You don't even need funding for this. You need laptop, I need laptop, and we can talk.
Yeah.
um,
Hmm.
there's more. There is the entire crypto world, right?
Yeah.
We can send funds from Austin, Texas to Uganda in seconds. Okay, with Bitcoin it will be maybe
Yeah.
1 hour,
Yeah.
unusual, but it's super fast. And it's not easy to regulate this. I don't know if this is possible. Maybe it is. That's scary. But so far they don't know how to do this. And maybe when they figure it out how to do this, we'll have another innovation.
Yeah.
It'll be one step ahead of them. Also, there is more. The international trade is more relaxed today versus, I don't know, 50 years
Yeah.
ago. That may change. That
Hmm.
may change, and I'm a little bit afraid of this, but hopefully it will not change. From the other hand, traveling is easier. Traveling is easier, and that will stay with us for some time, I think, because um, they for the governments it's easy to make this argument against the influential rich people. They have this popular support
Hmm.
for eat the rich, or something like this,
Yeah.
and they can levy these stupid taxes and
Mm.
so on and so forth, or they can make the regulation because of safety. But to tell an ordinary citizen you cannot go to a certain country, that's beyond
Yeah.
the framework. They did this though under COVID regimes, and they
Yeah.
used the safety reason. But I think a lot of people were very upset. A lot of people were very upset, and fortunately, we are back in the situation that we can travel, and simply telling people that you will be now locked in your country like North Koreans,
Hmm.
that's far away. In my opinion, that is far away. That will be very very hard in many places to establish kind of like a prison in a country. And as long as we can move with our legs, where our bodies and our capital, and now internet helps to live without living with our bodies, right? We can do many things, not everything, but we can do many things online in other places around the world. Uh, these are also forces of liberty, and I would say this is a clash: the forces of state and the forces of liberty. And there I mentioned global government, and there are also
Yeah.
forces, very international forces. You could say globalist forces on the other side. Like, isn't crypto a global phenomena? Of course it
Yes, it
is.
is.
There's many. That's why saying like globalization is bad or good. I don't like it.
Yeah.
I want to ask a question. What do you mean by globalization? I would say, like, do you
Yeah.
talk about the governments trying to put this rope over the neck of the free enterprise and free people,
Yeah.
or do you have in mind global financial phenomena, global enterprises? The first one I'm against. The other one I'm for, but they are not going hand by hand. They are usually clashing. They are clashing. So I'm the liberty team. I
Hmm.
am the free markets and liberty team, and on the other side there are the forces of authoritarianism, forces of socialism, maybe even totalitarianism in some countries. and these are our enemies, and we should not be afraid to call it this way. And of course, there's a gradation. Some countries are closer to totalitarian nightmare, and some are closer to freedom, and none of them are pure freedom places, or pure, maybe North Korea, pure totalitarian nightmares. There is
Yeah.
a gradation, and we should also recognize this as libertarians. It's not 0 and 1. It's not black and white. There are shades of gray. And for example, I think that the emergence of this axis of let's call them authoritarians, not to so that
Yeah.
we don't go too far with naming. Um, you know, countries that have, from one hand, very big differences. Some of them atheist countries, some of them very orthodox religious countries. They go very far on both directions. Places like
Yeah.
Iran, places like Venezuela, places like China, places like even very conservative Hungary, places like Turkey under Erdogan. They recognize that they have things in common, and unfortunately, what they have in common is a very little regard to individual liberty. The rest of the countries, not all of them are the West, right? There are countries that are not
Yes.
in the pact, but let's say the Western countries, they're not like ideal for liberty. I know that, and they do a lot of bad things, and they regulate too much, and they tax too much, and they watch us too much. But I have a feeling that they are a bit closer to the ideal of individual liberty, and to see these differences and to see where are we standing for freedom in various countries, that I believe that matters.
Yeah, there's a lot of different forces at play. I think the scariest thing about what happened with the coronavirus in 2020 was it was the first time in the world it seemed that the entire world went crazy at once. We've never really had that happen. I mean, where it's okay, where's our refuge? Where do we go? It's
And it was
and
hard to go, right? Hard to
yeah,
go,
where do we
especially
go? Yeah, it made
internationally.
it harder to go. Yeah, it's a
Think
yeah,
of federalism in the US. You are blessed to have a federal country, still
yeah,
a federal country, because at least you could move from statist authoritarian California
mhm,
to relatively free Texas or relatively free Florida. The level of regulation when it comes
yeah,
to closing enterprises, censoring, and schools was very, very different in those states. Many places like France, Italy, Austria, they were horrible, and they could not
yeah,
go anywhere. They could not even move from well, because the regions are, don't differ by laws, or they differ very, very little. So Poland is similar case. We had we have a centralist unitarian government. One size fits all here,
yeah,
and it does not in reality. Our COVID regime was slightly weaker, lighter
mhm,
than Western European, but it was still much worse than in Florida or Texas. I think it was kind of in
yeah.
between.
Yeah, that's one thing people may not realize. The USA is a lot more decentralized than other countries. I mean, for example, the county sheriff here has a lot of power and really can thumb his nose at the federal government. And I've also noticed. Yeah, you may have, and you probably noticed it too when you're in America. There is no USA license plate. I mean, there are different license plates issued by all the different states, and of course it's Canada. It's also that provincial license plates in Canada and state license plates in Mexico. But in Europe, every license plate is national. It's
And they even tried to make a European Union nation plate.
yeah,
So far
yeah,
they have not achieved this, but these Eurocrats, they are ready to do this because they have this crazy idea that everything must be unified in Europe.
yeah, and you can't help but notice too. But almost all the European license plates look the same. I mean, they're almost it's really you really have to look closely. Whereas in America, you'll have red light. I mean, all the license plates in Europe are white with black letters, and here you
Some
come
of
here and
them are yellow
you
with
see
black
license
letters.
plates that are all these different colors. It's
Yes, and some in the US you will have sometimes nice paintings,
yeah,
nice
little
design.
paintings of
Forget about design in Europe.
I,
Here,
yeah
unification is the king.
yeah I
Unification
was
and unification.
I was really surprised even when when I saw that there was just a Russian license plate. I thought, okay, maybe they would divide that up. And no, that the point is you don't buy your license plates in America from the federal government. You go get it from the state. It's
Yes.
very different. Yeah. But that's one thing too, though. If you have a more local government, in the American state of New Hampshire, for example, their legislature, every one legislator represents less than 4,000 people, whereas our federal Congress, it's one person in that house represents 700,000 or 800,000 people now. This is one of the things that when the government gets further away in that sense, it seems to eh, they just don't know what it's they just become out of touch.
Oh yes, yes.
Yeah.
I noticed this. Plus the fact that you have 50 state constitutions,
Yeah.
and it's not so easy to change the law. At Project Arizona we have this friend who is a legislator. He's a Republican. He's not
Yeah.
libertarian, but he's
Mhm.
kind of libertarian leaning, you can say.
Yeah.
um, Alex Kolodin, and he also teaches American politics to our students.
Mhm.
So one of the classes he took us to Arizona House of Representatives,
Mhm.
and we used his bill, which is about is an interesting bill, by the way. It's about not sending Arizona National Guard to foreign wars if there is no declaration of war.
Yes.
I think that makes sense. It's also these are the provisions that need. We want to live in a rule of law country, right? We don't want
Yeah.
to live in a rule of king country. That one guy says, "I want to have a war," and you send troops and everything. This is a serious business to go to war. It should have a full consent, not just a guy who is called president and his administration. So we did a mocking hearings, and he told us all the steps of this process. And this is 27 or 26 steps. I don't remember exactly. And from one hand, someone might say, "Oh, that's a lot of how we say in English in America. You say um, red car. No, I forgot. Sorry, but
Red carpet.
uh, red carpet maybe. Yeah,
Well,
like a
red carpet means like like if Milei shows up at the conference, you'll roll out the red carpet from. It's like saying, we're gonna have you walk in on the red carpet because you're important. That kind of thing.
Okay, but the over regulation, how you call it,
Oh,
is also red something.
red tape. Red
Red
tape. Yes.
tape, exactly,
Red
not
tape.
carpet.
Yeah.
Red
I,
tape,
I don't know where that phrase comes from yet, but they call it red tape.
red tape. You can say like, oh, it's a lot of red tape. But from the
Yeah.
other hand, think of this. Okay, but we are talking about laws, or I would say
Yeah.
legislation, and this is usually limiting individuals' freedom. Usually, not
Mhm.
always, but usually it does. Maybe we should have a very different perspective that for businesses and individuals to act, we should fight red tape, and that should be streamlined and easy. But for government, maybe it should be exactly the other way around. Hard to hard to make changes, and sometimes good laws also need to go through these 27 steps. I know that, but let's be realistic. Most of the laws are crap and bad, and they are so. Good law, if it's a really good law, will go through all the steps, right, and will be implemented. So I'm actually happy that it's hard. They produce less legislation that way if it
Mhm.
is complicated.
Yes, it does produce less legislation. Yeah, I think we don't have that much time left. I got to ask, for a while, you've certainly been very impacted by the invasion of 2 years ago. I mean, you were actually taking some Ukrainians into your home for a while, right?
Yes. So I live in Poland. I live in
Yeah.
southwest of Poland, and I happen to have many friends in Ukraine. I visited Ukraine probably about 15 times, so many times. I just like going there. It's it's quite different to Poland. Okay, the language is similar and some food is similar, but it's quite different country. We, that means Poland, we made a big shift in our economy, and in early 90s we had this shock therapy. Now you even hear these comparisons, Poland to Argentina, the shock therapy in Poland.
Yep.
Ours maybe was not as deep, but ours was quite
Mhm.
deep for
Yeah.
Europe, quite hardcore. So
Mhm.
I like these comparisons. It's actually when they talk about Poland in terms of like free market reforms, that's nice. I wish Argentina to go even further, of course. So we made a big shift economically. We were as poor as Ukraine in late 80s. There
Mhm.
are indications, and now our wealth is maybe, I don't know exactly, but at least 5 times more
Oh
per
wow.
capita. That's a lot, that's a lot. And so there are a lot of difference, but people are many people are really nice. And we had liberty camps there, we had freedom events, and I developed some friendships. So when this war started, I opened my house to a family. It was not a random family. I actually knew a father who is my friend. I
Yeah.
didn't know his wife and kids, and they came because he cannot go. He needs to be in Ukraine. There are laws about this, but they stayed with us. Also, grandparents came.
Mhm.
Um, so they stayed like 4 months, and we made nice ties. And later, when they came back to Lviv because they were from Western Ukraine, which is relatively not that much, involved in the war. There are occasional
Yes.
bombing, but there's no like everyday action.
Mhm.
So they came back, and I did some fundraising. Many people, especially from US, supported this. I think you did as well, Chris.
Yeah.
I want to thank. We were helping them to get this heating, from an independent source. So this is also the case. Like in Poland, a lot of people open their hearts, open their homes.
Yeah.
So the perception of refugees is very different than, for example, in Germany, where they created this government, camps for refugees, and they were coming a few years earlier from Syria, right? And that was not so much spontaneous and so much, by the people for the people. In Poland was very different. Today, most people, Ukrainians mostly, are not in these homes. They either, some of them moved to other countries because Poland was the stop for a few
Yeah.
months, or they came back like this family, or they are here but they live independently. They rent. They also joined the market. We have especially ladies, because they are mostly ladies. There
Mhm.
are some men, but from the previous immigration. And there are some people who say, "Oh my God, there's more hairdressers now than before, and the prices go down." But you know what? Most of the people in Poland are happy about this, that they can have at least something goes down, because most prices go up. So
Mhm.
thanks to this new immigration, and they are quite entrepreneurial. We can have cheaper haircuts, or ladies have manicure, or you can get the lady to clean your house for reasonable price. What's wrong about this? So that's one of the sides of this war.
Aren't there more people that need hairdressers as well? I mean, if you have more people,
That's also the case, right?
of
The
course
more
you.
people come, the more needs on the market. But there's also another side. Like here in Poland, we live right next to this war, and we have we meet the refugees, migrants. That's one thing, and we hear the stories. That's one thing. The other thing is that we Putin is not new phenomena for us. We
Yeah.
we watched him closely from the beginning, from the year 1999. He was the prime minister. I think 2000 he was already a president,
Yeah.
and we watched closely different events, the Chechnya war events, then what happened in Georgia, in Republic of Georgia, with the invasion, actually 2008. Then what happened in Ukraine 2014, and what happens now, plus number of other places. And we know that when he says that he wants to restore the Soviet Union's geopolitical influence, when he says that's when he is not lying. He wants to be remembered as this, hard fist dictator who managed to make Russia greater. But for most of Russians, how they measure the greatness is not through. This will be important for Americans. It's very different than in the
Yeah.
US. You measure greatness by prosperity, by security, maybe, that you can live safe and prosperous and free lives. And if many people can live this way, and that makes America great. What makes Russia great in the vision of most people is Russia would go to places on the map, countries basically, that Russia occupied before and Russia will regain. That will make Russia great. And that's the tragedy. And let's remember about this because that's number one issue. And if someone says, oh, that's fine because they are far away, well, I understand. Of course, I understand and I'm sympathetic with idea that US should be very reluctant to send any
Yeah.
troop. That's definitely I understand this. I support. But to say that this is all fine and it's not fine. It's totalitarianism in action. It's quite despicable. And free people are not happy when this happens. The people concerned about liberty shall not be happy and take it easy. This is not good. This is an attempt to take other people's property and so on and so forth. It's this entire narrative. I would say that there is a narrative. I hear it sometimes in the U.S. that Russia is a peaceful country. Russia was provoked, and
Yeah.
Russia needed to do what they did because it was Russia in danger. That Russia, without doing this, would be attacked by NATO or Ukraine. I I don't agree with this. We watch this closely, and despite there are many things we may not like about the West, but the West was not going to attack Russia. I assure you, the West was not going. We leave them alone with this type of government, this type of mentality. So there are some foundational issues that needs to be understood, and I'm happy many people get it right. Hopefully, hopefully even more.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of myself included who just worry that that our country has just so lost its way. I was talking to a gentleman who recently lost custody of his sons because his wife wants to turn one of the boys into a girl, and apparently, for whatever you can say about Putin, Russia has said, if you're in a situation like that and you want to bring your kid here, we will give you asylum. And I'm just thinking, why would put just yeah, I there are definitely some things I think where the moral foundation of liberty in the West is just falling apart. I mean,
Oh
I
yeah, but
yeah, and that's
but
one of them.
uh,
I
but
mean,
they
I
use
think
it
these
for
people
they
who
use
want
it
to,
for political game.
yeah, yeah,
There are many countries
oh
that
yeah,
are West-oriented countries,
yeah,
like Poland, like Argentina, for
yeah,
example. It's also West, looking towards the West, not
yeah.
towards
I
the
I
East.
think I
Uh, and these countries will also not allow for things like that you mentioned.
because how are you going, because we're not going to survive if we don't have kids until we figure out a way unless we figure out a way on our own to live forever. And I think
Yes,
and not to mention, I think when people have kids, freedom is always necessarily you have to believing in freedom is a long-term vision. You're the person who can only see tomorrow and the end of the week doesn't really think much about freedom, but people who
right.
have a long-term vision do think about freedom. And when you have kids, it just opens up that you think about yourself, well, okay, what kind of world am I going to leave for my children? It's
But Chris, I would be a little bit optimistic
yeah,
about the US. I think
yeah,
without making any political comments, because I'm not team Republican or I'm not team
oh yeah,
Democrats and whatever. But a lot of people voted as how they voted for Trump in the last
Yeah.
elections, not just because they love Trump so much. He's not that easy to love, I think. It's because they had enough of this wokeness, this
Oh
progressive
yeah.
regulations, and illiberalism, basically. Because, as Jonathan Haidt says, we have left and right.
Yeah.
Could be liberal and illiberal, and I think we are entering era where the left becomes more and more illiberal. There are also tendencies on the right that are illiberal, but it's especially the dynamism on the left to say that close your mouth. We don't want to discuss things anymore. We decided. If I hear statements like this,
Mhm.
I understand Americans that they
Yeah.
show the red card.
Yeah, I think that's why I think the one thing that seems to be common in most places, maybe not in the former Warsaw Pact, is just the college professors are completely horrible, and I don't know if we're ever
Oh
going
yeah.
to fix that. You know, it's
In Poland, they are. It's not as bad as in the U.S. Of course, there are tendencies, especially in the largest cities, largest universities. But tendencies are bad. I just don't know. I don't know if this will ever go that far. It's probably hard. It's probably hard. Let's see. Let's see where this is going. I think we can resolve these problems still in
yeah,
our relatively free societies. We don't need the hard fist guy to
yeah. We
help
don't.
us.
I don't. I think yeah. Sometimes I think people just really well, you know, which it's like it's a battle of which hard fist guy is worse than the other. You know, and yeah, it's so complicated. I think you always have to you know focus on what you're for and not but some people just get too wrapped up in what they're fighting against, but it's always got to be a positive vision. But yeah, so well, yeah, you said you had to go pretty soon, so what do you want to say before we go?
I want to say live long and prosper. I want to say viva la libertad carajo, and I want to say
Yes.
merry Christmas as well.
Yeah. How do you say it? Merry Christmas in Polish?
Wesołych świąt.
So yeah, yeah, I can imagine Christmas is probably really wonderful in Poland. I can just imagine.
Oh yeah, it's nice because also the weather. It's not it does not always snow, but maybe every other Christmas it does snow, and it's very family centered holiday.
Oh
I
yeah,
think in the US as well, right?
yeah,
Um,
it's still yeah,
Still yes. So especially the Christmas Eve, December 24th. That's where
yes.
there is no life on the streets. 5 p.m. to 8 p.m. Those 3 hours, like there's no cars. So everybody is at home,
Wow.
having the special meal together and unwrapping the Christmas gifts. In some many houses, singing Christmas carols or listening to them. So it's very special, very charming.
Yeah, yeah. That's something I should probably do. Yeah, I've heard so many different stories about people having Christmas elsewhere, and they're just always amazed by it. Well, okay, and yeah, and you're on the web where or Liberty International is on the web, of course.
Yes, liberty-intl.org.
Yes, yes,
And I very much welcome you to check it out. Information about our projects. If you like what we do, I encourage to donate. We are
yes,
501c3. It's tax deductible, and we are a special kind of organization. We have a. You notice this in Dallas. Our team is all over the world.
yes. You are.
At the moment, we don't have any person in the team from the U.S. We have a board from United States.
Yeah,
The older, the wiser, But the team, the people who work every day, now it's 14 people. Um, they are from Latin America, especially Argentina, Europe, nice representation from Poland, Asia,
mm,
where at least three from India,
yeah,
and few other countries from different continents. I would forget about Africa, of course.
yeah.
We have two Nigerians and one team member from Malawi. So that's very special. You don't find that kind of international. mosaic in other organizations, and we work remotely, and we take what is the what is the best in the market, free market globalization, um,
Yeah.
and we are fighting against, of course, the big government people
Yes.
and limitations of liberty.
It's got to be interesting organizing all those meetings. Okay, please like this video, subscribe to the channel, go to my Substack, go to buymeacoffee.com, and go check out my novel Escape from the Village. Thank you, Jacek Spendel. I'm Chris Baker. We're out. Buy my novel Escape from the Village from major booksellers online. Go to escapevillage.com. Subscribe to the Substack. Go to fountainheadforum.substack.com. Support the forum. Go to buymeacoffee.com/fountainheadforum. Thank you.